The evening sky over a quiet Ohio suburb was tinged with gold and fading pink as the sun sank behind rows of neat houses. In one backyard, 3-year-old Emma Miller was playing with her small collection of toys, her laughter bubbling up as she chased a butterfly across the grass. Her mother, Sarah, sat on the porch steps, absorbed in a phone call with her sister, the conversation a steady murmur beneath the chirping of crickets. She glanced up occasionally, seeing Emma tumble, giggle, and right herself, her tiny hands brushing dirt off her knees. Everything seemed ordinary. And then she wasn't there. One moment Emma was squealing in delight and the next she had vanished. Sarah froze, the phone slipping from her hands. Her heart skipped, then thundered. "Emma!" she screamed, voice cracking as panic gripped her chest like a vice. The backyard, once familiar and safe, felt alien, wide, and menacing. The swing set creaked in the gentle breeze, a stark, hollow sound in the sudden silence. She ran to the fence, calling her daughter's name again, hopping. It was a game, a hiding spot Emma had chosen on her own. But there was no giggle in response. Neighbors started appearing in doorways, drawn by Sarah's frantic calls. Lights flicked on inside houses, illuminating the cul-de-sac like a stage. Phones were raised, hands waving to catch attention. A few brave neighbors joined Sarah in the yard, scanning bushes, checking behind garden sheds. The unease was contagious, fear spreading like wildfire. Each passing second deepened the sense of dread. One neighbor, Mr. Hawkins, offered to call the police. His voice shook. He was not immune to panic either. Within minutes, the distant wail of sirens pierced the evening calm. Police cars skidded to stops in the street, tires crunching gravel, lights flashing red and blue, painting the suburban walls in urgent staccato color. Officers jumped out, radios crackling, moving swiftly to assess the situation. Sarah was trembling uncontrollably, tears streaming, hands shaking. She told the officers everything. The time she last saw Emma, the game she had been playing, the butterfly that had distracted her. Every detail mattered. Was she wearing anything distinctive? One officer asked. Sarah nodded, describing Emma's pink dress with white flowers, her small sandals, and the bow in her hair. Another officer spoke into his radio, requesting K-9 support. Within minutes, a police van arrived, and from it stepped Rex, a large German shepherd with a coat of black and tan, eyes alert, ears twitching at every sound. His handler, Officer Daniels, crouched beside him, showing calm confidence that contrasted sharply with the raw panic of the humans around him. Rex sniffed the air, nostrils flaring, tail stiff. The scent of Emma was faint, but it was there. He growled softly, low and cautious, then turned toward the woods lining the backyards. The officers fanned out, following him with measured urgency, weapons holstered but hands ready. Sarah ran behind them, calling Emma's name over and over, hopping, praying. Each rustle of leaves, each snapping twig made her stomach twist with fear. Every shadow seemed to hold 1,000 horrors. The wind picked up, carrying scents, sounds, and the haunting echo of Emma's laughter from earlier. Rex led the way with precision, pausing only to sniff at spots the officers could not detect. His instincts were flawless, guiding them along a trail that seemed invisible to human senses. Sarah felt a mixture of hope and terror. Could Rex really find her daughter? Could a dog's intuition outmatch whatever had taken her child? She had no time to dwell. Her focus was singular. Find Emma, bring her home. Minutes felt like hours as they moved deeper into the trees. The branches scraped at arms and faces, leaves sticking to sweaty skin. Sarah stumbled over roots, her lungs burning, tears blinding her vision, yet Rex never faltered. He barked sharply, then stopped at a cluster of bushes. He circled, alert, sniffing. His ears pricked forward, tail rigid. A faint sound, a giggle, echoed from somewhere beyond. Sarah's heart leapt. "Emma!" she shouted, her voice trembling, hoarse. The officers pressed forward cautiously, lights from their flashlights cutting through the darkening forest like blades. Emma appeared, perched on a moss-covered rock by a small creek, dirt streaking her cheeks, tears clinging to her eyelashes. She looked terrified but unharmed. Relief surged in Sarah and she bolted forward, gathering her child in trembling arms. Emma clung to her mother, sobbing, small arms wrapped tightly around her neck. The officers surveyed the scene, tension still thick in the air. Something didn't sit right. Near the edge of the woods, faint footprints led away, vanishing into shadow. It was no simple wander-off. Officer Daniels spoke quietly to Sarah, explaining that the tracks suggested someone had been nearby. "We need to check this," he said, pointing toward the trail. Sarah nodded numbly, holding Emma close. The sense of safety she had felt moments ago evaporated. They had found her, yes, but had she been alone the entire time? Or had someone been following, watching, waiting? Rex's ears twitched again, growling low. The dog sensed more than they could see, a presence lingering just beyond the reach of light and sound. Sarah's mind raced. She tried to focus on Emma's face, reassuring her, brushing hair from the toddler's damp forehead. "It's okay, sweetie. Mommy's here," she whispered. Emma nodded faintly, trembling, still clutching a small toy she had managed to bring with her. The officers began securing the area, cordoning off the woods for a more thorough search. Neighbors had gathered at the edge of the property, murmuring anxiously. Phones captured videos, some shaking, documenting every moment of the miraculous recovery. Rumors, speculation, and fear buzzed among the crowd like angry bees. By the time backup arrived, dusk had settled fully, painting the neighborhood in deep blues and shadows. Sarah held Emma tight, rocking her gently, muttering prayers under her breath. She noticed that Rex sat quietly by the creek, tail wagging slowly, eyes scanning the perimeter, ready to react. The dog had done what humans could not: locate her daughter in near darkness, guiding everyone to safety. Yet something lingered in the air, a whisper of dread that refused to dissipate. The tiny figure on the rock had survived, but the mystery of who, or what, had been near remained unresolved. The K-9 team stayed in the woods, following the faint trail Rex had indicated. Sarah, exhausted, watched with a mixture of fear and gratitude. Emma, still trembling, began recounting small details in halting words, pointing to rocks, leaves, and shadows. The officers listened, realizing that even a toddler might provide crucial insight into what had happened. Rex's keen nose and Emma's tiny voice had solved the first part of the puzzle, but the rest remained a question mark, an invisible thread stretching through the evening, promising answers only with patience, courage, and time. As the night deepened, Sarah whispered to herself, stroking Emma's hair, "We found you, baby, we found you." But somewhere in the woods, hidden just beyond the flashlight beams, movement stirred. A branch snapped softly, too deliberate to be accidental. Rex's ears twitched again, tail stiffening. Emma looked up, sensing tension she could not understand. Sarah felt a chill despite the warmth of holding her child. The danger might not have passed. Something or someone had been watching, waiting. And the story of Emma's disappearance was only beginning. The tension in the woods was palpable. Sarah's arms ached from holding Emma close, and the cool night air did little to calm her racing heart. Rex's ears twitched as he sniffed the underbrush, nose low to the ground, tail straight and rigid. Officer Daniels followed closely, flashlight in one hand, leash in the other, eyes scanning every shadow. The forest seemed to close around them, branches reaching like grasping hands, every rustle a threat. Emma whimpered softly, pressing her face against her mother's shoulder, shivering not just from cold, but from the lingering fear that something had been following her. Rex suddenly stiffened, growling low, a warning resonating in the silent woods. He bolted forward, dragging Daniels through a tangle of bushes and over roots slick with fallen leaves. The officers scrambled to follow, calling Emma's name to reassure her. Sarah stumbled but kept pace, Emma clinging desperately to her chest. Every step forward intensified her fear. Was the dog's growl directed at a hidden person, or was it simply an instinctual warning? She dared not ask. Her only thought was reaching safety, yet Rex seemed to know a path she could not see. The dog stopped abruptly at a small creek, the water shallow and murky, reflecting faint moonlight. He barked sharply, then circled back and nudged Emma gently. Sarah's eyes widened in shock. He's found her," she whispered, though Emma was already in her arms. The little girl had been on the rock just ahead, sitting with dirt-streaked cheeks and wide, fearful eyes. Relief flooded Sarah, but it was tempered by unease. Something about the scene felt wrong. The footprints near the creek were not Emma's. They were adult-sized, disappearing into the darkness beyond the tree line. Officer Daniels crouched, examining the tracks with the methodical precision of a seasoned K9 handler. "Someone been here," he muttered, pointing toward a series of prints partially obscured by leaves. Sarah felt her stomach twist. How had Emma managed to avoid this person? Why had the figure not taken her, or had they been interrupted? The questions piled on top of each other, forming a weight that made it hard to breathe. Rex growled again, low and dangerous, signaling the trail ahead. The officers needed to follow, but every step felt perilous, as if the shadows themselves were watching. Sarah tightened her grip on Emma. "It's going to be okay," she whispered, though her voice betrayed her fear. The toddler pressed closer, clutching a small stuffed bear she had dragged along. Despite her age, Emma seemed aware of danger, tiny hands squeezing the toy as if it offered protection. The forest loomed around them like a living entity, every noise amplified. A snapping twig, an owl's distant call, the rustle of leaves under Rex's paws. Sarah realized just how vulnerable they were. One misstep, one unnoticed threat, and the relief of finding Emma could evaporate in an instant. Rex led the way cautiously, stopping periodically to sniff and mark the trail. His instincts were sharp, guiding the team toward the source of the disturbance without fail. The officers split, scanning the area for movement while keeping Emma close. Sarah's anxiety was almost unbearable. She glanced at her daughter, who, despite tears and trembling, seemed drawn to the dog, her small voice calling softly, "Good boy, Rex." The bond between child and canine was apparent. It was as if Emma instinctively trusted the animal to protect her, more than she trusted the adults around her. Suddenly, a sound broke through the stillness, a faint rustling, deliberate and careful. Sarah froze, holding Emma tighter. The officers exchanged quick glances, hands hovering near their belts. Rex barked sharply, ears erect, nose pointing toward a darkened cluster of trees. The presence of someone or something lurking was undeniable. They advanced slowly, flashlights cutting through the night, revealing shadows that twisted and disappeared as soon as light touched them. Every nerve was taut. Emma whimpered, sensing the tension, her small fingers curling around Sarah's neck. They reached a clearing where the footprints ended abruptly. The officer examined the ground, frustrated. "They vanished," Daniels muttered. "Something's not right." Sarah's mind raced. Had the person taken another path? Were they watching still? The uncertainty gnawed at her. She glanced at Emma, who was quietly observing the footprints, her brow furrowed. The toddler pointed to a particular branch that had been broken, barely noticeable to the adults. "There," Emma said softly. The adults looked closer, realizing that even a small child had noticed a clue the adults had missed. Following Emma's instinct, the team moved along a narrow animal trail that snaked deeper into the woods. The trees thickened, branches clawing at clothing and faces, but Rex never faltered. His nose led them steadily, unwavering. Hours seemed to pass as they pressed on, the only sounds being the crunch of leaves, the murmur of the creek, and Emma's quiet breathing. Sarah whispered reassurances, though doubt gnawed at her. Could they really reach safety? Or had the unknown presence circled back? Every shadow seemed alive, every rustle amplified by fear. Then finally, Rex stopped and barked urgently at a small hollow near the creek bank. Sarah's pulse leapt. Emma, still in her mother's arms, looked toward the sound, recognition flashing in her eyes. She pointed and whispered, "There, over there." Sarah followed her daughter's finger and gasped. Emma had been hiding behind a clump of bushes, shaken but unharmed, clutching her small stuffed bear. Relief crashed over Sarah, but it was quickly tempered by tension. The mystery of the lurking figure was unresolved, and the footsteps had disappeared into the dark, leaving questions that would not be answered immediately. As officers secured the area, Rex continued to circle, alert to any further threat. Emma's tiny voice recounted details of her escape, how she had hidden, where she had moved when the footsteps approached, and how she had followed her instincts to a safer spot near the creek. Sarah listened, awe and pride mingling with exhaustion. Even in her fear, Emma had demonstrated remarkable intuition, alerting adults to subtleties they might have overlooked. The combination of child's instinct and dog's training had saved her life. It was a miracle born from courage, fear, and the bond between human and canine. By the time backup arrived, darkness had fully descended. Flashlights, patrol cars, and streetlights combined to illuminate the scene like a staged operation. Sarah clung to Emma, stroking her hair, whispering prayers of thanks. Rex sat quietly nearby, ears alert, tail flicking slightly, a sentinel ready for further command. Officer Daniels knelt beside Sarah and Emma, speaking calmly, praising the child for her observations and the dog for his precision. The team had located Emma safely, but the incident was far from over. The mystery of who had been lurking, what they intended, and whether the threat remained would haunt the investigators for weeks. Sarah finally allowed herself to exhale, feeling a small measure of relief. Emma, still trembling, looked at Rex with wide eyes, murmuring soft words of thanks. It was as if the toddler understood, in a way adults could not, the critical role Rex had played in her survival. Yet even as relief washed over the group, a chill lingered. Something in the shadows had been deliberate, purposeful. Someone had been near her child, and whether by chance or miscalculation, the danger had passed for now, but not permanently. Officer Daniels made a mental note of the footprints, the hollows, and the path Emma had instinctively taken. He knew Rex's tracking had been precise, but human oversight could not be discounted. The evidence had to be preserved, carefully documented, and analyzed. Sarah, exhausted, clutched Emma close as neighbors and officers discussed next steps, while Emma's small fingers traced the folds of her mother's shirt, seeking comfort in her embrace. The backyard, once ordinary and safe, had transformed into a scene of suspense, danger, and remarkable rescue, a place where fear and hope collided. As the night stretched on, the search concluded for the moment. Emma was safe, thanks to her instinct and Rex's training. Sarah hugged the dog, whispering gratitude as if he could understand. The officers returned to patrol their posts, ensuring no further threats lingered. But in the back of Sarah's mind and in the vigilant eyes of Rex, a single thought persisted. The mystery of those footsteps, the shadowy presence in the woods, and the question of whether Emma's disappearance had been an accident or something far more sinister. Answers would come, but only in time. The night finally settled into a fragile calm. Emma fell asleep in her mother's arms, the stress and terror of the evening slowly giving way to exhaustion. Sarah stared at the woods, aware that the calm was temporary but grateful beyond measure for Rex, the K-9 hero whose instincts had saved her daughter. Somewhere deep in the shadows, the figure that had been near remained unknown, a lingering threat waiting for discovery. Yet for now, Emma was alive, safe, and unharmed. That was enough to sustain hope, even as the night whispered of mysteries yet to unravel. The morning after the incident dawned gray and heavy, rain misting the Ohio suburb with a chilling drizzle. Sarah had barely slept, her body still tense from the night's terror, her mind spinning with unanswered questions. Emma lay beside her, still drowsy but alert, clutching her small stuffed bear like a talisman against the night's horrors. Outside, police cars patrolled the neighborhood, officers discussing strategy in hushed tones. Rex, the vigilant German shepherd, sat near the front door, eyes scanning every movement, ears twitching at the slightest sound. What had begun as a simple disappearance was morphing into a full-scale investigation, and Sarah felt the weight of uncertainty pressing in. Detectives arrived early, notebooks and cameras in hand. Lieutenant Harris, a seasoned officer known for his methodical approach, took charge of the investigation. He spoke calmly to Sarah, explaining the procedure. "We'll review security footage, interview neighbors, and follow any leads. The goal is to understand exactly what happened last night and ensure nothing like it happens again." Sarah nodded numbly, her voice barely audible, grateful for the structure but haunted by fear. Every detail she recalled from the previous evening, the giggle, the shadows, the footprints, was now a potential clue in unraveling the mystery. Neighbors were questioned one by one, some offering vague observations, others recounting strange incidents from the past week. Mr. Hawkins mentioned a man who had lingered near the neighborhood on multiple occasions, his behavior odd and unsettling. A delivery driver recalled seeing someone loitering near the fence bordering Sarah's backyard. The puzzle pieces began to form a disturbing picture. Emma's disappearance had not been entirely accidental. The officers grew increasingly concerned, piecing together timelines and attempting to identify potential suspects. Each revelation added urgency to the investigation, the calm suburb now a place of tension and suspicion. Sarah sat with Emma at the kitchen table trying to normalize the morning, but her nerves betrayed her. She poured a small cup of cocoa for Emma, who sipped quietly, still processing the previous night's events. "Mommy," the toddler whispered, "Rex found me." Sarah smiled through tears, holding back the flood of emotions. "Yes, baby, he did," she replied, voice trembling. The child's small words carried weight, proof that her survival had depended on both instinct and trust. Sarah realized that while law enforcement could reconstruct events, Emma herself held insights that might illuminate the shadows they were only beginning to uncover. By midday, detectives were combing through security footage from the neighborhood. Cameras captured fleeting images of a shadowy figure near the yard, moving cautiously, almost deliberately avoiding detection. The figure's presence was unsettling. Though indistinct, the movement suggested intent. Sarah's heart sank as she realized how close danger had come to her child. The officers compared these images with witness statements, trying to establish a timeline. Each moment Emma had spent alone in the woods, guided by Rex, became increasingly miraculous. The dog's precision and the child's instinct had averted disaster, but the presence of another person remained a haunting question. Emma, though young, began recounting fragments of her experience. Her words were hesitant, broken by pauses, but contained remarkable specificity. She indicated hiding spots, small movements, and even subtle sounds she had noticed. The snapping of a twig, the swish of a coat brushing against leaves. The officers took meticulous notes, realizing that even a toddler could provide actionable intelligence. Sarah marveled at her daughter's observations, a mixture of pride and grief churning in her chest. The thought that her child had been both vulnerable and observant struck her deeply. Emma's survival had been as much about courage as it had been about fear. Rex's behavior remained a focal point. The K-9 unit analyzed his tracking log, GPS data, and reactions throughout the night. Each bark, pause, and growl was documented, revealing the dog's methodical approach to locating Emma. Officer Daniels explained, "Rex doesn't just follow scent. He interprets it, responds to stress, and senses danger humans might miss. That's why Emma survived." Sarah watched, astounded, as the dog became both hero and silent investigator. In combination with her daughter's recollection, the evidence painted a compelling narrative. The disappearance was no accident, and the bond between child and dog had been instrumental in averting tragedy. The investigation grew more intense as detectives followed the faint clues left behind. Footprints suggested a person had been nearby, but had altered their path deliberately to remain undetected. Experts speculated the individual might have been observing Emma before retreating. Sarah felt a chill. The notion that someone had deliberately endangered her child was unbearable. Each officer seemed equally disturbed, aware of the thin line between survival and catastrophe. The presence of a potential predator in what had been a peaceful neighborhood sent ripples of unease through the community, and media outlets were already beginning to ask questions. Sarah and Emma continued to recount the previous night in detail. Sarah was struck by her daughter's memory and intuition. Emma pointed out subtle changes in the environment, unusual shadows, and moments when Rex's behavior had shifted. These tiny observations, when combined with expert analysis, could guide law enforcement toward answers. Detective Harris noted, "Children can notice things adults overlook. Even subtle cues, like the direction of a branch breaking or a faint sound, can reveal intent." Sarah realized her daughter's contribution was not merely anecdotal. It could be pivotal in identifying the person who had caused so much fear. By late afternoon, the detectives had developed a working hypothesis. The footprints, The partial surveillance footage and witness reports suggested someone had approached the yard, perhaps intending to frighten or abduct Emma, only to be thwarted by the child's presence and Rex's intervention. The officers discussed their next steps, canvassing additional homes, reviewing wider area cameras, and cross-referencing any individuals known to loiter in the neighborhood. Sarah listened, trying to absorb each plan without succumbing to panic. She felt a flicker of hope. Progress had been made, yet the unknown figure still lurked in her mind. As evening approached, the neighborhood seemed quieter, but a tension lingered in the air. Residents whispered among themselves, exchanging concerned glances. Sarah and Emma returned to the safety of their home, yet the events of the day had changed everything. What had been ordinary was now layered with suspicion, fear, and vigilance. Rex, ever alert, patrolled the perimeter, a silent sentinel. The officer's warnings echoed in Sarah's mind. Vigilance was necessary. Though Emma had survived the night, the investigation had only just begun. The interplay of child instinct, canine heroism, and human investigation had prevented disaster, but the truth behind the lurking presence remained hidden. That night, as Emma slept soundly beside her mother, Sarah reflected on the day's revelations. The combination of courage, observation, and instinct had turned the tide, yet she could not shake the unease of knowing someone had been near her child, intentionally or not. The officer's analysis, Rex's precision, and Emma's own perception had preserved life, but the questions remained. Who had been watching? Why had they chosen her child? And would they return? The night was long, heavy with uncertainty, but Sarah held Emma close, trusting that the bond of love, instinct, and courage would see them through. Months passed since the harrowing night in the Ohio woods. The investigation had progressed steadily, following leads, reviewing surveillance footage, and interviewing neighbors. Finally, the day came when the suspect, a man with a history of suspicious behavior, was brought to trial. The courthouse was buzzing, media swarming the steps, cameras flashing, reporters scribbling notes furiously. Inside, the courtroom was packed with neighbors, law enforcement, and curious onlookers. Sarah clutched Emma's hand tightly, her fingers trembling. Emma, though only a toddler, sat calmly beside her mother, Rex at her feet, tail lying obediently on the polished floor. The gravity of the day was evident in every tense face. Detective Harris briefed the court before proceedings began. He presented a meticulous timeline: the night Emma disappeared, the swift arrival of officers, the trail Rex followed, and the eventual discovery of Emma by the creek. Each detail was documented with precision, evidence meticulously collected and cataloged. Photographs of the footprints, the broken branches, and the creek bank were displayed on screens. The courtroom murmured in response, eyes wide at the precision of the investigation. Sarah felt both pride and anxiety. The story was out in the open, and now it was up to the legal system to bring justice. The prosecutor, a woman with a reputation for sharp wit and tenacity, approached the bench. "Your Honor," she began, her voice commanding attention, "this case is about more than a single night. It is about the courage of a child, the instincts of a police dog, and the accountability of an adult who threatened that life." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. Emma's eyes flickered up to the speakers, and Rex's ears twitched, as if he understood the seriousness of the moment. The courtroom fell quiet, tension thick enough to taste. When it came time for testimony, Emma was guided to a child witness seat. Sarah held her daughter's hand gently, offering reassurance. The prosecutor knelt to Emma's level, speaking softly. "Can you tell us what happened the night you went missing, Emma?" she asked. The toddler's large eyes scanned the courtroom, then rested on Rex. A tiny finger pointed toward the dog, voice trembling yet determined. "Follow him." A hush fell over the room. The simplicity of the words belied their significance. They were the key to Emma's rescue, and the central piece of evidence against the man on trial. The defense attorney rose immediately, a look of disbelief crossing his face. He attempted to dismiss the toddler's words as coincidence, suggesting that the dog's tracking and the child's statement were unrelated. Yet even as he spoke, the courtroom could see the strength of the evidence. Rex's GPS tracking, the footprints, Emma's observations, and the detailed investigation all corroborated her tiny voice. Witnesses were called, neighbors who had seen the man lurking, officers who had followed Rex through the woods, and the K-9 handler himself. Each account reinforced the narrative of deliberate endangerment and miraculous rescue. Sarah watched Emma recite events she could barely remember herself. The toddler described hiding spots, sounds she had heard, and movements she had made, all details previously documented by the officers. Each word was precise, a testimony born from both fear and clarity. The courtroom seemed to lean in collectively, the air heavy with anticipation. Every adult present recognized the significance. A child's instinct combined with a trained police dog had preserved life. The realization sent shivers through those who understood that, without these two elements, the outcome might have been tragically different. The judge, an experienced woman with a reputation for fairness, observed the proceedings carefully. She allowed the evidence, emphasizing the importance of child testimony in matters where safety was at stake. The prosecutor summarized the critical points: the suspect's proximity, the sequence of events, Rex's tracking, and Emma's guidance that led to her rescue. Each piece of evidence built a narrative of courage, danger, and remarkable intuition. The courtroom remained silent, captivated by the story unfolding. A small child's bravery shining amidst fear, and the extraordinary loyalty of a dog. The media, present both inside and outside the courtroom, captured every moment. Cameras flashed as Emma's tiny voice filled the room, repeating the words that had saved her life. "Follow him." Social media buzzed with reactions from those who had witnessed the testimony. The story spread quickly, drawing national attention. Headlines emphasized the courage of the toddler and the heroism of Rex. Sarah felt pride mingled with anxiety. Her daughter's bravery was being celebrated, yet the ordeal was far from over. The courtroom drama was only one chapter in a story that would continue to resonate for months. As the day drew to a close, the final witnesses were called. Rex's behavior in court was exemplary. He lay quietly, ears occasionally twitching, alert to subtle movements. Emma's statements remained consistent, precise, and credible. The defense's attempts to discredit the child fell flat. The combination of forensic evidence, eyewitness accounts, and Rex's tracking made the narrative undeniable. Sarah felt her shoulders relax slightly, though tension remained. The jury now held the power to deliver justice, their decision impending. Every member of the courtroom understood the gravity. A child's life had been placed in peril, and the outcome would determine accountability. Outside the courtroom, community members gathered, discussing the day's events in hushed, awed tones. They reflected on the terror of the night, the suspense of the search, and the remarkable bond between Emma and Rex. Many felt a mixture of relief and admiration. The story was one of survival, instinct, and heroism. Sarah, still holding Emma's hand, knew that the courtroom drama was not just about punishment. It was about recognition of courage and ensuring that no child would be subjected to such danger without consequence. The day had been long, intense, and emotionally exhausting, yet it marked a pivotal moment in the pursuit of justice. As night fell, Sarah and Emma returned home, exhausted but buoyed by the day's progress. Rex remained vigilant, his presence a comforting reminder of the night he had helped save a life. Sarah reflected on the events. A small child's perception, a dog's keen instincts, and human determination had converged to prevent tragedy. The courtroom, filled with tension, media attention, and suspense, had witnessed the power of courage and truth. Yet the final verdict was still to come, a crucial moment that would determine the resolution of months of fear, investigation, and anticipation. The courtroom had transformed into a stage of intense scrutiny, every seat filled with anticipation, every eye trained on the unfolding drama. Prosecutors prepared to present the irrefutable evidence, weaving together a narrative of danger, instinct, and courage. Sarah held Emma's tiny hand tightly, feeling both pride and anxiety ripple through her. Emma, sitting calmly beside Rex, seemed almost aware of the gravity of her words, her small body still, her eyes wide and focused. Outside, media coverage had surged, capturing every detail of the proceedings. The story of the toddler and the police dog had captured the hearts of a nation. Detective Harris was called first. He presented a meticulously crafted timeline of events from the night Emma disappeared. Photographs of footprints, broken branches, the creek where Emma had been found, and the dense woods she had navigated were displayed on large monitors for the jury and spectators. Each photograph revealed the precision of the search and the danger Emma had faced. Harris explained how the suspect's presence had been identified, his movements tracked through subtle clues that most adults would have overlooked. The courtroom sat in tense silence, absorbing the meticulous unraveling of events. Next, Officer Daniels stepped forward, bringing with him the hero of the story, Rex. The German shepherd, well-trained and dignified, sat obediently beside his handler. Daniels explained the dog's training, highlighting his ability to track scents, sense danger, and respond to subtle cues. A GPS tracking log was presented, showing Rex's path through the dense forest, highlighting each pause, sniff, and reaction. The jury leaned in, captivated by the precision. Each data point corroborated Emma's testimony, demonstrating the dog's role in ensuring her survival. Every bark, every pause had been documented, forming a story of instinct, skill, and courage. Then came Emma's moment to shine. Despite her age, the toddler's testimony was remarkable. She described the events of the night with clarity that surprised even the most seasoned officers. "I hid behind the tree," she whispered softly, pointing to the images on the screen. "Rex came, he followed the smell, then I stayed on the rock." Her words were simple, yet the implication was profound. The courtroom was silent, the impact of her innocence and clarity resonating with everyone present. Even the defense team struggled to downplay the significance of the child's testimony. Photographs and sound recordings were layered with Emma's narration, painting a vivid picture of the night. She described the shadows, the noises, and the footprints she had noticed, details that corroborated the officers' reports. Each small observation was a piece of a larger puzzle, critical to understanding the events. Her bravery shone through in her demeanor. Despite trauma, she conveyed facts without fear. The jury seemed captivated, leaning forward, eyes fixed on the child who had survived against the odds. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes, pride and relief mingling with lingering anxiety. Expert witnesses were called to explain the psychological and procedural elements of the case. A K-9 behaviorist detailed Rex's reactions, explaining how the dog interpreted environmental cues, stress signals, and scent trails to locate Emma. The testimony underscored that the dog's actions were deliberate and precise, and that without Rex's intervention, the outcome could have been tragically different. Another expert discussed child observation skills, explaining how children notice subtle details that adults might miss. Emma's testimony was not only credible but critical, a combination of instinct, observation, and the extraordinary circumstances of her rescue. The prosecution then presented evidence connecting the suspect to the crime scene. Surveillance footage, faint but revealing, showed a figure lingering near the neighborhood prior to the disappearance. Footprints aligned with the suspect's shoe size and pattern, and witnesses corroborated sightings of the individual in the area. The narrative became undeniable. The suspect's proximity and suspicious behavior were established, and the chain of events was clearly tied to his presence. The courtroom absorbed the evidence in tense silence, the weight of the story pressing on every adult present. Every piece added clarity to a previously terrifying mystery. Sarah felt her heartbeat quicken as the pieces aligned. The combination of her daughter's testimony, Rex's tracking, and the forensic evidence painted a compelling picture. The prosecution emphasized how Emma's tiny voice, guiding Rex, had transformed a terrifying ordeal into a miraculous rescue. Her courage, insight, and observations were not just anecdotal. They were foundational to ensuring justice. The courtroom responded. The gravity of the child's role in the case became clear to everyone present. Media personnel whispered among themselves, scribbling notes, capturing images and exchanging glances of astonishment. The story was becoming legendary. The defense attempted to dismantle the narrative. They suggested coincidences, questioned the reliability of a toddler's memory, and proposed alternative explanations for Rex's behavior. Yet every point was meticulously countered by evidence: GPS logs, photographs, witness testimony, and Emma's precise recollection. The child's observations could not be refuted, the K-9's instincts were validated, and the suspect's presence was irrefutable. Each rebuttal strengthened the prosecution's case. The tension in the courtroom was electric, every person present holding their breath as the story unfolded, captivated by the extraordinary interplay of fear, bravery, and justice. As the day drew to a close, the final pieces of evidence were presented. Rex was praised for his unwavering focus, Emma lauded for her courage, and the detectives for their careful investigation. The narrative was clear. A small child's instinct, a dog's skill, and diligent human effort had prevented tragedy. Sarah held Emma close, watching her daughter's eyes light up with quiet pride. The jury had absorbed the full weight of the story, each detail corroborating the miraculous rescue. The courtroom seemed to hold its collective breath, knowing that the next chapter, the verdict, would deliver the culmination of months of tension and bravery. Outside the courthouse, reporters buzzed with anticipation. Social media was alight with speculation and admiration, national news covering the story of a toddler and her police dog. Emma's role, though small in size, loomed large in significance. Parents, law enforcement officers, and community members alike marveled at her bravery and clarity. Sarah reflected on the extraordinary circumstances, the night of fear, the meticulous investigation, and the undeniable bond between child and dog. It was a story that would resonate far beyond their small Ohio suburb, a testament to courage, instinct, and the power of observation. As the courtroom emptied for the day, Sarah whispered to Emma, "You were so brave tonight." Emma clutched her stuffed bear and whispered back, "Rex helped." The acknowledgement was mutual. The dog, loyal and vigilant, had played an indispensable role. The child's insight and the K-9's expertise had intertwined perfectly, creating a narrative so compelling it was impossible to dispute. Sarah realized that the courtroom drama was more than legal procedure. It was a testament to human resilience, the bond between species, and the miraculous outcomes that can arise from courage and intuition. That evening, as Sarah tucked Emma into bed, she reflected on the events. Each step, the disappearance, the search, Rex's tracking, the suspect's presence, and the courtroom testimony, had built toward this moment. Emma's small voice, her courage, and her observations had transformed fear into evidence, and instinct into justice. The next day would bring the verdict, the final judgment of the trial. Sarah could only hope that the extraordinary bravery displayed by a toddler and a dog would be recognized fully, ensuring that the right decision was made, and that the story's miraculous arc reached a satisfying, just conclusion. The courtroom was silent, the air heavy with tension. Months of investigation, searching, and preparation had culminated in this moment. Every witness, every piece of evidence, every bark of Rex, and every word from Emma had led to the moment where justice would be determined. Sarah gripped Emma's tiny hand, feeling her daughter's warmth, trying to steady both their hearts. The toddler sat quietly, holding her stuffed bear, Rex, at her feet, calm yet vigilant, as if sensing the enormity of the moment. Outside, media vans crowded the street, reporters murmuring excitedly, waiting to broadcast the outcome to the nation. Judge Phillips entered the courtroom, robes flowing, her presence commanding respect and attention. She addressed the jury, her voice firm yet measured. "Members of the jury, you have been presented with testimony, evidence, and accounts from both the prosecution and defense. You have heard the story of a child in peril, a police dog whose instincts ensured her safety, and a suspect whose actions have been called into question. Your task is to determine the verdict based on the evidence and the law." Her gaze swept the room, emphasizing the gravity of their responsibility. The jury foreperson, a man with a measured presence, rose. He cleared his throat, glancing briefly at fellow jurors before addressing the court. "We, the jury, have reached a verdict." A hush fell over the room. The prosecution team leaned forward, eyes focused, hands gripping notebooks tightly. The defense attorney straightened in his chair, attempting to maintain composure, though subtle tension betrayed his anxiety. Sarah held her breath, Emma clutching her mother's arm as the courtroom seemed to shrink around the weight of the moment. The foreperson continued, voice steady but resonant. "On the charge of attempted endangerment of a minor and related counts, we find the defendant." The room seemed suspended in time, every heartbeat elongated. Sarah's eyes were wide, her mind racing through possibilities, hoping that months of meticulous investigation and evidence would result in justice. Emma's small fingers tightened around her mother's hand, sensing the tension, unaware yet fully present in the moment's significance. Rex's ears twitched, tail brushing against the polished floor, a silent sentinel awaiting resolution. "Guilty on all counts." The words echoed through the courtroom like a final drumbeat. Relief crashed over Sarah in waves, tears streaming unbidden down her face. Emma's eyes lit up. Though she didn't fully understand the magnitude, she felt the shift in the room. Officers smiled quietly, patting Rex on the head, acknowledging the dog's heroism. The defense attorney's face fell, a mix of shock and resignation, as the jury's decision affirmed the outcome everyone had anticipated. Months of fear, tension, and uncertainty were resolved, justice served. The judge nodded solemnly, acknowledging the verdict. "This court recognizes the extraordinary circumstances of this case," she said, her voice echoing with gravity. "The bravery of the child and the K-9 officer has been instrumental in the course of justice. Let this serve as a reminder of the importance of vigilance, courage, and the bonds between humans and animals in protecting our most vulnerable." The courtroom absorbed her words, a sense of finality settling over the room. For Sarah and Emma, the moment was a mixture of relief, pride, and lingering awe. The prosecution team approached Sarah, offering congratulations. "Your daughter's bravery and Rex's precision were pivotal," the lead prosecutor said warmly. "Without them, this outcome may have been very different. You have every reason to be proud." Sarah nodded, swallowing back tears, gratitude washing over her. "Thank you," she whispered. Her gaze fell on Emma, who, small and quiet, smiled faintly, still holding her bear. The bond between child and dog, so crucial on that terrifying night, was now celebrated and recognized publicly. It was a moment of triumph amid the lingering shadows of fear. Outside the courthouse, a crowd had gathered, drawn by the media coverage and the story's emotional weight. Reporters surrounded Sarah and Emma, eager to capture their statements. Sarah spoke with composure, recounting the bravery of her daughter and the heroism of Rex. Emma's voice, though small, added authenticity, repeating the words that had saved her life. "Follow him." Cameras captured the scene, broadcasting it across news outlets nationwide. The story resonated deeply with viewers. A tale of courage, survival, and the extraordinary bond between a toddler and a police dog. Back in the courtroom, officers debriefed, sharing quiet congratulations. Rex received extra attention, scratches behind his ears and pats on his back, a hero recognized not only in data and testimony but also in heartfelt appreciation. The K-9 unit acknowledged that the case was extraordinary. Few had witnessed such a precise combination of canine instinct and child insight. Sarah, still holding Emma, felt a deep sense of gratitude for everyone who had helped protect her daughter. The trial was a testament to dedication, vigilance, and the extraordinary ability of humans and animals to work together in moments of peril. As the day progressed, the community reacted with relief and admiration. Social media exploded with posts celebrating Emma and Rex, portraying them as local heroes whose story had inspired countless others. Parents expressed gratitude, law enforcement officers felt pride, and ordinary citizens were moved by the extraordinary events that had unfolded. Sarah watched quietly, feeling both pride and humility. She knew the trial was more than a legal process. It was recognition of courage, teamwork, and the power of observation in ensuring justice. Emma's bravery and Rex's heroism had become a symbol far beyond their small neighborhood. In the evening, Sarah returned home with Emma and Rex. The house felt calm, but the memories of the past months lingered heavily. She tucked Emma into bed, stroking her hair, whispering reassurances. "You were so brave, baby. You and Rex saved the day." Emma clutched her bear, murmuring softly, "Rex helped." The acknowledgement was simple yet profound. It was a quiet moment of reflection, a recognition of courage born from fear and intuition. Sarah knew that the journey was not just about the trial, but about the resilience and bond that had preserved life against overwhelming odds. As night fell, Sarah sat quietly, reflecting on the roller coaster of emotions, from the terror of Emma's disappearance to the relief of the guilty verdict. The courtroom drama, months of investigation, and the child's testimony had culminated in justice. Yet the story's impact extended beyond the legal outcome. It was a testament to the extraordinary collaboration between humans and animals, and the innate bravery that can emerge in even the smallest individuals. For Sarah and Emma, the verdict brought closure, but also a profound recognition of the miracles that courage and instinct can create. The city lights twinkled outside the window as Sarah whispered a final prayer of gratitude. The fear and anxiety of the past months had been tempered by courage, teamwork, and relentless pursuit of truth. Emma, now asleep, embodied resilience, innocence, and bravery. Rex, lying quietly by the bed, remained a symbol of loyalty and instinct. Sarah knew that while the trial had ended, the lessons of that night, the importance of vigilance, the power of instinct, and the extraordinary bond between a child and a dog would remain with them forever. Justice had been served, and hope had triumphed. The morning after the verdict, the neighborhood was abuzz with quiet celebration. The tension that had gripped the community for months had lifted, replaced by relief, admiration, and cautious optimism. Neighbors exchanged smiles and whispered congratulations, acknowledging the bravery of a toddler who had faced danger, and a police dog whose instincts had ensured her safety. News vans were parked along the streets, reporters speaking in hushed tones as cameras captured the faces of locals still processing the extraordinary story. Sarah walked carefully with Emma and Rex, the trio now symbols of courage and survival in their small Ohio suburb. Despite the relief, Sarah's mind was busy with reflection. The months of fear, investigation, and courtroom drama had been exhausting, leaving emotional scars that could not be erased overnight. Every rustle of leaves reminded her of that terrifying night. Every shadow seemed larger than life. Yet she could not dwell in fear. The community had rallied, the guilty party was held accountable, and Emma was safe. Rex, ever vigilant, remained close, ears twitching at every sound, tail swishing subtly. His presence was comforting, a living reminder of the night when instinct and bravery had converged to save a life. The media spotlight intensified as national outlets picked up the story. Headlines praised Emma's courage and Rex's heroism. Morning news programs featured interviews with Sarah, Detective Harris, and Officer Daniels, highlighting the extraordinary bond between child and canine. Social media erupted with images of Emma clutching her bear, Rex sitting proudly beside her, and captions celebrating their story. While the attention was overwhelming at times, Sarah was grateful. The story spread awareness of child safety, the importance of vigilant neighbors, and the incredible capabilities of trained K-9 units in real-life crises. Community events were organized to honor the heroes. A small ceremony at the local police station celebrated Rex, acknowledging his contribution to saving a life. Emma, in her tiny dress, sat beside her mother as officers praised her bravery, presenting a certificate of recognition for courage. Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she watched her daughter beam, proud and composed despite the lingering fear she had endured. Rex, wagging his tail in measured happiness, received treats, scratches behind the ears, and applause. The scene was heartwarming. A small child and her dog, elevated to local legends, reminders of courage, instinct, and unwavering loyalty. Sarah also reflected privately on the experience. The terror of Emma's disappearance had forever changed her understanding of fear and gratitude. She felt a deep appreciation for law enforcement, for Rex, and for her daughter's innate courage. Emma's observation skills and quick thinking had made a tangible difference, providing critical guidance to adults navigating danger. Sarah realized that children, often underestimated, could perceive subtle threats with clarity adults might overlook. This insight, combined with Rex's trained instincts, had created an extraordinary partnership, one that saved a life in the most dramatic of circumstances. As days passed, the family adjusted to a new normal. The police department maintained contact, ensuring that the investigation's closure did not mean complacency. Sarah and Emma continued to meet with officers, sharing observations and participating in public awareness campaigns about child safety. Schools and community centers invited Sarah to speak about vigilance, instincts, and the importance of teaching children how to recognize danger. Emma, despite her young age, became an emblem of courage. Her story inspired parents, educators, and children alike, a testament to resilience in the face of fear. Rex became something of a local celebrity. The dog's heroics were widely reported, and donations were made to the K-9 unit in his honor. Children visited the station to meet him, and community members praised the invaluable role of trained animals in law enforcement. Sarah often watched Emma interact with Rex, the bond between them deepened by shared experience. The toddler's trust in the dog remained unwavering, a relationship forged in the crucible of fear, danger, and rescue. Their connection was more than companionship. It was a partnership that had saved a life and captured the attention of a nation. Despite the public attention, Sarah remained focused on healing and maintaining routine for Emma. Therapy sessions helped the toddler process the trauma, while Sarah worked to ensure Emma's resilience continued to grow. The family learned to navigate life with a renewed sense of awareness, gratitude, and vigilance. They understood that danger could appear unexpectedly, but the lessons of courage, instinct, and trust would remain with them forever. Rex's presence provided comfort, reassurance, and a living symbol of the night when survival relied on extraordinary collaboration between a child and her dog. The community, now united in relief and admiration, continued to support Sarah and Emma. Neighbors who had once been distant became friends, offering meals, assistance, and reassurance. Children in the area were taught lessons in observation, safety, and courage, inspired by Emma's experience. The story of that terrifying night evolved into a teaching moment, a narrative of hope, vigilance, and the extraordinary bravery that can emerge even in the smallest individuals. Sarah watched with pride as Emma engaged with others, her confidence growing with each passing day, a living testament to resilience. As months turned to a year, the story remained a touchstone for the neighborhood and beyond. Sarah often reflected on the journey, from the terror of Emma's disappearance, through the suspenseful search guided by Rex, to the courtroom drama, and finally the triumph of the verdict. The experience had forged unbreakable bonds between mother and child and dog, and family and community. Lessons learned from fear and survival became embedded in daily life. Vigilance, trust, and courage were now cornerstones of their existence. Emma, small yet remarkable, embodied the strength and intuition that had changed the course of events forever. Rex, older now but still vigilant, remained a constant presence. Sarah often marveled at his quiet patience, loyalty, and the way he had instinctively known how to protect Emma. The dog's heroism was celebrated, but more importantly, his unwavering dedication served as a reminder of the extraordinary power of animals in human lives. Every morning, Emma and Rex would play in the yard, the bond that had saved her life now evolving into a relationship of trust, love, and companionship. Their story had captured hearts, but it also symbolized hope, courage, and the miracles that can emerge when instincts and bravery converge. In quiet moments, Sarah would hold Emma close, reflecting on how close they had come to losing her, and how resilience, love, and instinct had guided them through the darkest hours. She knew that their story would be told for years, a narrative of survival against odds, of courage amidst fear, and of the bond between child and dog that had saved a life. The community, the nation, and even strangers had been touched by their experience, inspired by the extraordinary events that had unfolded. Life had returned to normal, but the lessons remained, shaping a future built on vigilance, courage, and unwavering love. 1 year after that terrifying night, Sarah stood in the backyard, watching Emma run alongside Rex. The toddler laughed, her tiny feet kicking up leaves, hair bouncing in the crisp autumn air. Rex bounded beside her, ears perked, tail wagging with quiet dignity. The bond between them, forged in the crucible of danger, had grown into something profound and enduring. Sarah's heart swelled as she observed their interaction. Emma's bravery had survived trauma, and Rex's instincts had matured into a steady, loving guardianship. The yard, once the site of terror and uncertainty, had become a sanctuary of joy and resilience. Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The fear of that night had transformed into gratitude, and anxiety had evolved into a deeper awareness of life's fragility. Months of investigation, courtroom drama, and community attention had tested her resolve and courage. Every officer, every neighbor, and every piece of evidence had played a part in Emma's survival and the pursuit of justice. Yet it was the unwavering instinct and bond between a child and her dog that had changed the course of events. Sarah knew they had been witnesses to something extraordinary, a story that would endure in memory and narrative alike. The courtroom, with its tense deliberations and emotional testimonies, had become a distant but pivotal memory. Sarah could still recall the hush that fell when Emma spoke her two simple, powerful words, "Follow him." That moment had captured the essence of bravery, intuition, and trust. The courtroom had witnessed not just a legal proceeding, but the triumph of instinct and courage over fear. The guilty verdict had been a moment of relief, but it had also served as recognition of the extraordinary partnership that had prevented disaster. Sarah often thought of that day as a turning point, a convergence of fear, courage, and justice. Media attention had subsided, but the story remained a touchstone in the community. Local schools invited Sarah to share her experience with students, emphasizing awareness, courage, and the importance of observation. Emma, despite her young age, became a quiet inspiration. Children listened intently as Sarah recounted her daughter's heroism and Rex's role in ensuring safety. She emphasized that courage could emerge in unexpected forms, sometimes in the smallest voices, sometimes in the instincts of a loyal companion. Each story reinforced the notion that vigilance, trust, and empathy could make a difference, even in the most dire circumstances. Sarah also observed the healing process within her daughter. Emma's nightmares had subsided, replaced by confidence and resilience. The toddler's laughter now filled the house, unburdened by lingering fear. Therapy sessions had provided tools to process the trauma, while play and routine nurtured her growing sense of security. Sarah marveled at how Emma's bravery had persisted through vulnerability, allowing her to navigate fear with both clarity and courage. The bond with Rex, strengthened by shared experience, continued to serve as a source of reassurance and stability, a tangible reminder that instinct and loyalty could overcome even the most frightening situations. Community support remained a steady presence. Neighbors often stopped by to check in, share meals, or offer small gestures of kindness. The neighborhood, once wary and anxious, had become closer-knit, united by the story of Emma's survival and Rex's heroism. Community leaders initiated programs to educate families about child safety, canine partnerships in law enforcement, and the importance of observation. Sarah contributed whenever possible, sharing lessons learned, fostering awareness, and encouraging parents to trust their instincts while nurturing their children's awareness. Emma's experience had transformed fear into empowerment, not just for her family but for the entire community. One crisp autumn evening, the family gathered on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Sarah held Emma on her lap, fingers entwined, while Rex lay nearby, vigilant but relaxed. The moment felt surreal, a stark contrast to the terror of a year ago. Sarah whispered softly, "We've come so far, baby. You were so brave." Emma, small but wise beyond her years, smiled faintly. "Rex helped Mommy," she replied, her voice calm and certain. Sarah kissed her daughter's forehead, acknowledging the truth in those two words. A life saved, a bond forged, and courage proven. The lessons of the past year lingered in Sarah's mind. Life was unpredictable, filled with moments of fear, uncertainty, and unexpected challenges. Yet she had witnessed resilience, courage, and heroism in forms she never imagined: a toddler's intuition, a dog's instincts, and a community's unwavering support. The story had captivated the nation, inspiring parents, law enforcement, and ordinary citizens alike. Sarah realized that courage could emerge in the smallest of voices, that loyalty and instinct could achieve the impossible, and that hope could thrive even in the shadow of fear. Emma's future was now framed by resilience, awareness, and a deep sense of trust. The toddler had learned that fear could be met with courage, that instinct could guide action, and that loyalty could create safety. Rex remained a steadfast presence, a guardian and companion who embodied the lessons of that fateful night. Sarah knew that Emma's story would stay with her forever, a source of strength and inspiration. Each day, each small victory, reinforced the lessons learned in the woods, the courtroom, and within the supportive arms of family and community. As winter approached, the family celebrated the first anniversary of that terrifying night. Friends, neighbors, and law enforcement officers gathered for a small, heartfelt ceremony. They recounted the events, praising Emma's bravery and Rex's heroism. Sarah observed the scene with tears of gratitude, watching her daughter interact confidently with others, her innocence intact but strengthened by experience. The celebration was more than remembrance. It was a recognition of resilience, courage, and the extraordinary bond between a child and a dog that had changed the course of their lives forever. At the end of the day, Sarah tucked Emma into bed, the room warm and safe. Rex curled beside her daughter's bed, alert but calm. Sarah reflected quietly on the journey, the fear, the search, the courtroom drama, and the triumph of courage over peril. She realized that life had been irrevocably changed, not just by the danger they had faced, but by the lessons learned, the bonds formed, and the courage displayed. Emma's voice, Rex's instincts, and the support of the community had created a narrative of hope, survival, and inspiration. As Sarah turned off the light, she whispered a final thought into the quiet room. "You and Rex saved the day, baby, and now together we've learned how brave we can be." Emma, half asleep, murmured, "Rex helped," a simple acknowledgement carrying profound truth. The dog shifted slightly, ears twitching as if in agreement. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, a gentle reminder that life continued, fragile but resilient. Sarah lay beside her daughter for a moment, embracing the calm that followed the storm, knowing that the extraordinary events of the past year had left an indelible mark on their hearts and their lives. The story of Emma and Rex would be told for years to come, a testament to courage, instinct, and loyalty. Sarah knew that while life would inevitably present new challenges, they now possessed a blueprint for resilience. Trust intuition, act with courage, and rely on the bonds that protect and sustain. Emma's small voice, her bravery, and Rex's unwavering dedication had turned terror into triumph. Together, they had created a story of survival that inspired hope, educated a community, and reminded everyone that extraordinary courage can emerge from the most unexpected places. In the quiet night, the house at the edge of the Ohio woods remained a place of safety, love, and vigilance. Sarah, Emma, and Rex had survived the unimaginable, grown stronger, and created a bond that would never be broken. The terror of that fateful night was now a memory, transformed into a story of heroism and hope, a narrative that would forever remind them, and everyone who heard it, of the power of courage, the wisdom of instinct, and the enduring strength of love between a child and a dog who refused to let danger prevail.